inspiration. This is Remote Daily, an oasis of innovation for your mind, soul, and heart. Connect, act, and recharge with Remote Daily. This is Remote Daily.
Yeah, please welcome the co-founder and chief marketing officer of the global startup ecosystem, Christine and Tim. Hi, Christine. It's so good to see you.
Same. Welcome. Thank you so much. Really a pleasure.
Christine, I hope you can see me okay. Let me know if the connection keeps being spotty. It's so great to have you with us today. We first met a few years ago and we hosted a conference together on accelerators in New York City. And since then, I've just been following you taking over the world, really, about every emerging market you're in, and you're building startup ecosystems there. Congratulations on all that you have achieved. It's just mind-blowing. And before we get to that, I have to ask you a personal question, because I know you're a mom of two amazing kids. You're based out of New York City. How have these last 2 months been for you, Christine?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I think a lot of people are focused on a lot of the negative topics that's featured on the media. But for us as a family, it's actually been pretty good. We're used to traveling a lot. My husband and I, we travel on the base of our company, but usually they're with us too. So they travel to all these countries with us, exploring all these markets. So this has been a great opportunity for us to kind of like reflect and just have time together. Both of our daughters, both 4 and 2, our first daughter actually celebrated her first birthday under quarantine. So that was amazing, seeing her grow up in the midst of all of this. And honestly, for the kids, they don't see a difference. And I think that's something for parents. If your vibe is going great, then the whole world is great for them. Their world is the parents and their vibe and their family. So they're loving it. We're building routine every day because our daughters obviously are not in school. But they're really getting close. And I think that closeness is happening for a lot of families right now because you're forced to interact, forced to even have blowouts, which is really great too, because you're able to really have meaningful experiences and moments together. So as a family, we've been doing pretty well and really enjoying each other. We're cooking together. So my daughters know like my routines with cooking breakfast. They do it with me, which is really cute. And so it's been really great. It's been really, really good.
That's great to hear, Christine. And as you just said, you are a true global citizen. Your entirely family travels around the globe to connect people, to build markets, to bring companies together. So what impact did this pandemic have on your actual business of hosting events, hosting workshops, just bringing people all the time? What are the biggest challenges you're currently facing with your own business?
Yeah, I mean, I think challenges and opportunities. I think the silver lining to all of this is that this actually has helped our business in many different ways. I know members of my team is on this thread. So shout outs to the GSC family that's, supporting me and showing me virtual love from Ghana, New York, and London. So really appreciate the support and love. And they could speak to it. Like, I think, we actually gotten busier because GSC originally, funny enough, we were founded on the premise of being digital first because we had to. Our original goal as an organization was to bridge the divide, the digital divide, pretty much for emerging market regions, where our sole mission since we were incepted was preparing individuals and organizations for the digital age. At the time, back in 2015, when you had that premise, it was a cool mission to have. Fast forward to this year, we're actually ramping up. We actually need to hire more because, we have a whole remote internship program that's happening right now to double our workforce. So we've definitely been adjusting with the times, but for us, it wasn't a pivot. It's just reinforcement. And that's something that was very crucial for our business, reinforcing that digital first, that digital inclusion, democratizing our access, and really making access to content, speakers, influencers from all over the world more pertinent. So the 3 things I would say that this pandemic has done for our organization: 1, reassess our values and double down on that. I think for any organization, when you were running on routine prior to this pandemic, you were just going to the flow. So you have the excuse of being busy to just going through the motions. This pandemic, whatever resources you have to dedicate it towards what really matters to you. So reinforcing your values, for us being digital first and being accessible was key. So the majority of all our events have been free and virtual for people to access. Second, really showing diverse inspiration, because I do feel like people need not only content to learn and grow, but inspiration and giving a silver lining. We always say that, out of pandemics, chaos sometimes is a lighter. And there are opportunities during pandemics and during chaotic, unprecedented times like this. And at GSC, who would have thought a pandemic would have made us shoot out and grow exponentially as an organization? And I think third is really reinforcing divisions that support. We have a COVID-19 response, actually. And our COVID-19 response is pretty much, we have one of the largest databases of free resources, grants. You could go on our site at globalstartupecosystem.com, and it's updated on a daily basis, giving people access to all the tools, resources, and information that they need. We have pilot grants and funding streams that we're doing for certain regions that are really depleted in terms of resources. But those are the three things that has really supported our company through this crisis, and really doubling down on the networks that were with us from the start and say, like, our message, our value. Let's reinvent what our partnership looks like as an organization and as an ecosystem.
How big is your organization at this point? How many people work with you? And what is also the main companies that support your business?
That is a great question. So we've always been a small team of 22. We're based out of New York, and then we have a second office that we actually opened in December during Ghana's epic year of return. There was a huge flow of travelers, some celebrities, politicians traveling to Ghana last year. And luckily, my husband's Ghanaian, so we had a really good community in Ghana. So we had opened a second office in Ghana. And then we have a small office. This is our small office actually in London. So I'm actually in London speaking to you live during this pandemic. And so for us as an organization, we've been definitely, being able to explode. We're currently hiring to double for the summit, for the summer, based on this pandemic. But as far as partners, we have some of the biggest brands that work with us. I mean, if you Google GSC or Google my name or go on our LinkedIn, we have the C-level suite from Forbes magazine, Google, LinkedIn, Facebook, AWS, Google Cloud, you name it, all the relevant startup partners in the ecosystem work with us for our accelerators. And as far as our tech summit lineup, we have legendary people speak at our summits, from Jack Dorsey to Sophia, the celebrity robot, came on our last virtual summit. We had a virtual summit last month with 100 speakers and close to 3,000 delegates registered for that conference. So we're definitely working with a lot of our partners to go virtual. And by the way, we're actually helping many of our corporate partners go virtual as well, with initiatives that I could talk to later. Mm-hmm. But as an organization, we've definitely been hands-on in supporting our partners in many ways.
Christine, listening to you and being with you in a room together and experiencing your energy has always been a huge inspiration for me. And I think one thing that is a major motor and machine behind your ecosystem is actually you and your journey that could fill books. So I just allow me to maybe focus on a few single parts of it. First of all, you grew up in Haiti. You were a street vendor, if I'm right. You hustled your way through, then became a startup founder there, connecting street markets in a digital way. So my first question about your very personal view on Haiti is, when you from growing up there to looking at the country today, what are the biggest changes that you see in your own home country?
Yeah, that's a great question. And everyone knows, I walk with the authenticity of being proud of where I'm from, so I always tell people, don't be fooled by my accent. I'm definitely a true New Yorker. So we're about business. We're very pungent. We're very to the point, and we come to you with a hard fire and energy. So you can resonate and get that vibe from me. Even if I'm in London, no matter where I'm at, you can feel
fast talking, fast walking.
Exactly. But as far as Haiti, I grew up in Haiti. My parents are Haitian. I'm the first in my family born in Haiti. And when I look at Haiti today, I think, when we launched Haiti Tech Summit back in 2017, people were completely shocked at a completely different narrative and perspective about the country. Haiti, for those of you who don't know, many people associate Haiti with negative connotations like the earthquake, political corruption, poverty. But Haiti has a long history of being the first Black republic and being very inspiring in terms of independent nations coming to the forefront. And for the past 215 years, there's been a lot of challenges, as in every country has those stories. But recently, in terms of tech, Haiti's actually the #1 tech ecosystem in the entire Caribbean within the past 4 years through the works of the Haiti Tech Summit, but also the partners that support us. But more importantly, Haiti is also, during this pandemic, it's tough, like business is at a halt for any country of all. And I think what people are seeing when you look at emerging markets, Western markets are getting hit a lot harder in many ways than emerging markets. Whereas, countries like Haiti, they're forced to just be resourceful, and they've been resourceful for the entire tenure of their history as being a country. So you're seeing street vendors creating face masks. You're seeing, local companies who are not outsourcing products from outside the country, just build locally. You're seeing people buy from local farmers. So you're seeing an upsurge and local product creation amongst countries like Haiti. And I think for us, right now, we're going through a lot of political changes within our government, but at the grassroots level, people individually are moving and doing crazy change. I mean, especially when you look at tech, seeing the number of, virtual conferences, virtual events, virtual meets. This is a country that people said had bandwidth issues. And now you're seeing an entire industry, an entire ecosystem come online virtually to connect with the entire world. And going back to my affiliation with Haiti, I'm a proud Haitian. And I know the beauty. And I mean, when you think about emerging markets, the majority of the economy is based on that entrepreneurial hustle and drive, because the labor markets are not fitted the same way in Western markets. So you want to find a dynamic entrepreneur that knows how to make money, make revenue, do the hustle very quickly. You go to places like Haiti, and they've shown that resilience and that aptitude to adapt to markets like this. So it's been very fascinating to see that, especially considering in 2017, when we launched Haiti Tech Summit, there were a lot of people who laughed at us. Like, why would Haiti and tech be in the same sentence when they have, quote unquote, internet issues? 83 million views within the first summit, that when you Googled Haiti, you didn't see images of the earthquake, you saw images of the summit. That was the reaction that people were witnessing for the first time, that people saw images of Haiti's beaches. They saw images of people networking. They saw images of Jack Dorsey, Bill Gates, all these people in the country negotiating. They saw announcements like Google launching out of Haiti, Facebook launching a developers group out of Haiti, being the largest in the Caribbean. These are the narratives that people are seeing just out of a tech summit. So as a country, I think people are blending a new narrative about Haiti as a country, but also rethinking the potential of emerging markets, because the world is a lot smaller now. So you can no longer make excuses about what's happening in your home community and not seeing the examples of opportunities and life lessons and case studies that are happening around the world in real time as well.
I mean, talking bandwidth issues, I'm in the middle of Manhattan and I'm having bandwidth issues. So, no question that a lot of things have flipped. But you just mentioned 2017, a lot of people didn't think you could pull it off. You did, with massive success, land this tech summit in Haiti. And since then, you have launched around the world. So please take us around the world. What next to Haiti are, in your personal experience as a global entrepreneur, you've lived in Dubai, you're in London now, what are the most exciting emerging markets for startups that most of us here in the Western world don't even have off their radar yet?
Yeah, and I think that brings up a really probably big elephant in the room question, like, what is the future of travel after this? Because I think one thing that this pandemic has shown the world, that the event industry actually does drive economies. Because when you look at an event, you think of just conferences, but you don't think that every single interaction is technically an event. And Zoom digitizing that reality is showing to people that you meeting with an investor, that's an event. You going to a conference, that's an event. You buying a product from someone off the truck for it to get to your office, that's an event. And so when travel, the mobility of people and places and products stop, then the economy stops. And I think for us, seeing in real time how different countries, because you have to understand, we run tech summits in different countries, all simultaneously throughout the year. And so we're able to see exactly what's happening. And I think we're also able to plan better, because back in March, if you guys take a step back, sometimes we tend to forget about what really happened the day it happened. You ever ask somebody what they remembered? And one thing I would suggest is really good feedback that we received from previous influencers. Journal your experience right now. You think you're going to remember your sentiments, your feelings, your life lessons during this pandemic after it's done. You won't, and you'll regret it. So journal and really document either your daily experiences. Maybe you could make it a call to action every day after remote daily, since people are coming online. But don't forget to journal and document your experiences, because you will realize that if you flash back to February when this all started, a lot of people didn't take this seriously for whatever reasons that they had. March, then the whole world was on alert. And now who would have thought that in June, we already have been several weeks quarantines where we're not even traveling the same way anymore. And so in looking at the future of travel and what that means for emerging markets, 2017, we launched Haiti Tech Summit with 100 speakers, 83 million views. 2018, we launched 11 summits around the world, including ones across Ghana and space, and that superseded millions of views. Last year, we did 23 summits around the world, 10 across the African continent, one in Saudi Arabia, one in Dubai, one in London. So we were doing live tech summits events. And usually it's the country, Haiti Tech Summit, Ghana Tech Summit, Nigeria Tech Summit. And we work with government stakeholders like ministers and presidents, actually heads of state speak at our summits, and the private ecosystem. This year, for 2020, we were scheduled to do 54 tech summits around the world. That's 20 across Africa. You have 5 across the Middle East, and then the rest is sprinkled around different emerging markets, including Brazil, China, and the like. That went to a halt in March. And one thing I would say about the emerging market ecosystem is how are we pivoting them to the virtual experience. So we immediately from March, we didn't wait till April or May and wait it out like a lot of event organizers who were trying to figure this out. From March, we just said, let's just transition, because we've been digital first, and just take everything online and keep probably December events live, because you have to understand, in these emerging markets, they're not as hit as hard as Western markets. So we could tomorrow host an event in Ghana. Tomorrow we could host an event in Haiti, because they don't have the same cases as in New York, which is probably one of the epicenters of the pandemic in the US. And so we're able to bridge and compare the experiences of the local market in real time. But personally, my whole life has been centered around travels. I traveled to 22 countries during my college years. I traveled to about 30 plus countries before I started GSC. And so my whole experience has been, how do I connect with people through their own reality? And I think we need to understand that when you're taking these Zoom sessions where you're meeting with people virtually, ask them that question. How is it in your community? How is it in your home? Because you'd be surprised to see not only the similarities, but what you could learn from someone's experience. I mean, I love that Grace originally just said, she's coming in from London and her reaction about being Friday. Other people in the Middle East, Friday is already the weekend, right? And so you got to really start to see how small the world is and see that the future of travel has just gone virtual, and try to travel and live the world through these virtual sessions. So that way you could understand what's happening in real times. Because you might think that in your city, it's at its worst. And then you hear something that's happening in Ghana and gives you a relative understanding of what's happening, because mental depression is at an all-time high right now. And if you have a global context of what's happening in other countries, you could stabilize yourself and see how to plan ahead just by seeing what's happening around the world through these virtual experiences.
And back to my question, what are the countries or the regions where you would say the next wave of entrepreneurs, the next wave of tech is coming from that we do not have on our map here in New York City?
I would say Africa 10 times over. Africa to exponential Africa. And for several reasons, because Ghana was already on the kickoff last year with the Year of Return campaign. Everyone's flooding the Ghanaian market. It's because the ease of business in Ghana was very great. And also, you're hearing announcements of unicorns coming out of Africa, but people weren't taking it seriously. They were still waiting the sea game. But unfortunately, when you look at geopolitics right now, Saudi is going through a lot with the oil changes. Like for the first time in history, oil went negative. That's never happened before. So you've seen some unrest in the Middle East. China, we already know there's a lot of skepticism around manufacturing for the future. Where are people going to take their manufacturing hubs going forward? Right? So people are looking at places like Africa. We still have the same kind of cost metrics to build, and looking at those spaces. And a lot of startups are getting into logistics, are getting into meetings, are getting into, platforms that create and facilitate remote talent, remote work. And so places like Ghana, the Kings was what they call it, the top tech hubs of Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, right? And you can add Ethiopia into the mix as well. These are places where you're going to see a lot of tech companies coming out of and a lot of investment, just because, again, they're not hit as hard as the other markets with the pandemic, but also they're also resilient with these type of things. You have to understand, African entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs in emerging markets, they didn't have the same capital flow as investors who were providing capital in startups in Western markets. So this pandemic, even though it's hit them, they've already been intuitive and resilient and readjusting themselves for decades. And so you're seeing that comparison. I think people should learn a lot for how they're pivoting and how they're adjusting. I think earlier you said that, Remote Daily also did pivots. I think we need to redefine what a pivot is. I don't think it's really a pivot. I think it's resilient entrepreneurship. I think we need to embrace that you changing how you give value is not truly a pivot in your business model. It's reinforcing a value in a unique way. And I think we need to redefine how we look at pivots, because I think when we hear pivot, it's a scary thing as business owners. And you're not truly pivoting everything as an entity. You're really trying to redefine value in a way that's pertinent to people.
Thank you for giving, also us here at Remote Daily some great business advice. Really appreciate it. And talking of which, you're helping so many companies, hundreds of companies every year, young companies, young founders from all the countries you just mentioned. Can you maybe take us into the world of your accelerator for a second? And first of all, explain to us, how do you actually define an accelerator? And secondly, maybe give us 3 examples of companies that you have seen rising through your accelerator where you say, look for these guys.
Yeah, so I think, in explaining the accelerator, I think people have different definitions of what an accelerator is and what an incubator is. The blanket example is that incubator incubate ideas, whereas accelerator, you already have the idea, you already have some type of product market fit, and you need a platform or a resource community or hub to accelerate, right? To kind of, speed up your business development process, right? And sometimes people do that through resources, through cash. And so our Accelerate program does that, where we find entrepreneurs or companies from around the world, especially in emerging markets, who have an idea that already has product market fit, some type of traction, and give them access to our entire ecosystem network of resources, support, funding to accelerate them past any type of inhibitions that they have currently at the moment. And I want to take a step back and just redefine, and I want to also make it very clear that GSC is actually one of the first and the largest digital accelerator on the planet. I want to make that clear, because during this pandemic, I'm seeing a lot of accelerators pivot to virtual acceleration, which is great, because I'm seeing an entire industry come out of this, which is amazing. But I look at what GSC has done for the digital accelerator ecosystem. Like, I look at Y Combinator, who created an accelerator model, right? Back in 2015, when we were running digital accelerators, it didn't make sense, because you had a whole co-working industry that was driving. I mean, WeWork was at the top of this game. People didn't see the definition or the purpose of having a digital accelerator when you had an entire ecosystem go in person and live. And so in 2015, we didn't even have a division for America and Europe, because it didn't make sense. We had 5 regions, 500 companies for the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America, because those were the markets that saw the value in digital acceleration. Then in 2016, the second year, that's when we had 750 companies. And then we added those markets, because those markets were seeing the value of what we were providing in other markets and started joining on board. And as of 2018, every single year we selected 1,000 companies, and we operate in 7 regions, because you can't build a company in New York the same way that you would build it in Kenya, right? And so for us, it's Africa, Asia, America, Middle East, Latin America, and those 7 regions. And so it's 100 companies per region. So as in terms of a digital accelerator ecosystem, it's not a matter of just like going live on Zoom and then you have an accelerator program. How do you create the resources and experience of an in-person accelerator and bring that online? And that's what we did over the past couple of years. So now, as being the largest, we're actually helping corporates go virtual. I don't know if you guys are seeing that we're actually working with Forbes to do the largest digital accelerator in Nigeria, because it's such a hot market. And for us, because we have this brand of building and scaling in emerging markets, corporates are now partnering with us to take that digital accelerator market to those markets.
And
so
I know the question is a little bit crazy, but if I ask you to pick maybe, 1, 2, 3 companies out of the thousands, to just share with us that you have seen rising.
Right, and that's what I'm getting to, because I think it's important that you guys understand that these companies came out of digital accelerator platform, because when you look at examples of successful businesses, they only come out of Techstars or Y Combinator. So that's a whole narrative of companies that you guys don't tend to look at. And this is the point of the pandemic, is forcing you to see value. So to look at some of the companies that I'm most proud of is companies like Print, where out of the Haiti program that we did for the accelerator model, they were able to expand so rapidly and actually create their own innovation hub for, communities of color out of that accelerator program, to now they were actually speaking at our summit last year, and they were able to scale monetarily with those partners that we gave them access to, which was IBM and Google and AWS. Other companies.
What is the name of the company? Sorry.
Print. They're a Haitian startup company. Right. And the second one I'll give is the Ghana Innovation Hub. They were part of our Ghana Tech Accelerator program, and now they're actually doing 3D printing models. Last year it was looked at as a really cool thing, but because they're doing so well, over the past couple of years after doing our program, now out of Ghana, people actually, when they visit the country and see companies that are scaling very quickly, Ghana Tech Innovation Hub is actually helping other entrepreneurs scale appropriately. So we're not only scaling startups, we're also scaling startup hubs out of our program. So those are 2 really good examples out of Haiti and Ghana that I'm very, very proud of.
Thank you so much, Christine. Talking about products or platforms, can you maybe give us a glimpse into what kind of technologies you see emerging? Because here in the US, in the last crisis, we saw, for instance, companies like Uber and Instagram getting their start, right? So the crisis, as always, crisis is very valuable for innovation. You just talked about that. So what technologies, platforms do you see emerging right now? What are the trends in tech that you see emerging out of your accelerator?
Yeah, so I think, when you look at recessions, like you said, like back in 2008, the entire world was looking at the sharing economy. So that's why Uber, Airbnb were the winners of that recession, in a sense, right? Where they were able to create solutions for that mindset. Right now, communication is probably the gold mine of the pandemic. If you could build a platform for expanding communication and expanding how we distribute remote talent around the world, those are going to be the winning companies, right? And so the winners right now, if you look at them, is Zoom, Slack, and some people don't talk about this, but LinkedIn. Because right now people are getting laid off at a massive rate. And so LinkedIn is actually superseding expectations beyond Facebook right now as a platform. And so as an accelerator program, we're seeing a rise in people creating platforms for communication, right? And platforms for also sourcing remote talent. Another thing too is healthcare companies, obviously, right? Because we're going through a healthcare pandemic. And so people are creating healthcare startups at a rapid rate. In Ghana, there's actually a startup company that's doing drone deliveries of medicine, of, face masks to get people across, because people are not mobilizing. You're not allowed to go on the streets because we have obviously stay-at-home orders. So they're actually transporting goods through drone delivery. And at first it was, again, a pet project. Now it's a mandatory thing. So Helium, I think, is the health startup that started this, and they just raised $10 million just recently, just to expand on these type of operations. So you're seeing a lot of companies, is those 4 key areas that you see that are winning during this pandemic right now.
Thank you. And there's a lot, of markets that you're observing all the time, and you have an office in London. You're based out of New York City. May I ask you, just geographically, if you weren't based out of New York, what would be the place you would set up shop right now as an entrepreneur and build a new business, if you could just choose from wherever?
That's tough, because my immediate reaction was Ghana, just because, ever since opening that office there, I just saw such a crazy amount of talent there. I think people really underestimate remote talent. And now this whole pandemic has really reimagined people's perception of like where talent comes from is not defined by your geographic borders, it's defined by your value output. I think everyone feels that right now, where you're probably working more hours than you did when you were in the office, because now you're not evaluated based on your 9 to 5, you're evaluated on your actual output. And so I think for me, if I had to pick a location, I would pick Ghana, not only because of the talent, because of the humility, because I think, you know, in Western markets, we tend to not have the humility to learn enough anymore. And this just forces us to actually really come to a realization that there's a lot more that we need to learn to get better, and not only at our roles, at our jobs, but also as our roles within society. And then also because of the fact that, you know, people are seeing the value of that market. So if I had to pick, it probably would be Ghana or any type of emerging tech hub, because the last thing I will say on that is you want to go to where the puck is going. And a lot of times when people are looking at pandemics like that, I want you guys to think of the mindset of where's everyone flocking to? Because there was a time 10 or 20 years ago where people didn't think China was the place to go to when it comes to the manufacturing resurgence. Any company that had some type of base out of China was actually doing a lot in sales and revenue. So right now, where's the next emerging tech talent that's scaling as fast? Go to those African markets, even if it's just to understand, because right now there's a big scale. And then as far as the US, I would say a lot of the markets where it's not crazy urban, I think there's an adjustment right now in terms of people really looking at people really developing talent in non-urban communities, as well as really like emerging communities out of the US. I also see a lot happening in the Midwest as well.
And maybe a last question, Christine, before we come to the end. There's still in so many ways, also the media, and I'm part of that myself, is patronizing, you know, many of the countries that you're working in. What do you think is our biggest misconception as Westerners about the places you just talked about and you do business in?
Yeah, I think the most obvious thing is that, you know, as Westerners, like we tend to think that we know best. It goes back to this humility, lack of humility mindset that, you know, because the world, if you look at the world of media, media showcases that success comes out of certain places, that successful businesses come out of places in the US, places in Europe. So we have this perception that if you want to have a successful business, you have to operate it out of the US. But we forget that the US is also based on a whole ecosystem of immigrant entrepreneurs that did come there, but the mindset was very emerging market centric. I mean, you look at Elon Musk, you know, what he built out, he's from South Africa, but a lot of, you know, those platforms are actually coded out of Ethiopia. A lot of people don't know that, right? And so that's just one example of one of the, he was probably one of the most popular entrepreneurs of the year last year. If you're looking at him as a case study, look at all the dynamics that go into the right place, right mindset, and right talent. And that talent did not all come from the same place. And so fast forward to today, I think what people are realizing is that you need to really think about global first, right? And figuring out you don't have to have all the checklists to be a resilient and powerful entrepreneur in the same location. If anything, if you do, it actually hurts you, because anyone who's operated and concentrated any of their business activities in one location, it hurt them. Us being a digital company first and having offices in different places, it helps us, right? And so really thinking about, you know, diversifying the background and diversifying the mindset, because to your original point, if I say Haiti has top entrepreneurs right now, you guys will chuckle and think impact and putting these companies in a bucket. Oh, there's so much impact we're gonna do. But I would say if you keep having that mindset, you're just losing out on money, time, and energy, because there are companies who are making millions of dollars out of these emerging markets because they see the value. And if you don't want to take it just based on culture, because we're grown up with our own perception of identity, at least from a business mindset, where are you going to get your new capital revenue streams from? If it's going to Africa, if it's going to the Caribbean, you might as well go for it, because right now we need to rethink and re-identify what it means to be talented. Because right now, when I look at how people used to look at Haiti and how people look at Haiti today, it's complete 360, because they have images. And that ends to my point on this is narrative. I think right now with the internet, with media, because there's so much information coming into the media waves now, you're able to challenge mainstream perceptions of these markets and see like, wow, these companies are actually scaling out of these regions. Maybe I should take a second look. And so I think for me personally, us also representing our cultures. I mean, you are also, you're not, originally from the US, and you probably showcase where you're from, Felix, and you tell people that. And imagine what people perceive about innovation and people come out of your country just because of how you exude that confidence. And I always tell people, if people don't respect where you're from, they won't respect who you are. And so you got to exude that confidence in any way to showcase that I represent the markets that you probably didn't know best. And let me tell you a little bit more. So I think there's a responsibility of anyone who are from those markets to represent them proudly and showcase what's happening and showcase that narrative.
Thank you so much, Christine, for bringing your power and your knowledge here on Remote Daily. I have one last question for you, because you said you were journaling. One last personal question. What is the story that you think you will tell your grandchildren one day about this moment in time?
Oh, that's a powerful question. One thing I would tell my grandchildren about this time, I think resilient resourcefulness would be the two words I'll use to define this, because when I'm seeing what the media is portraying about what's happening on a global scale, it's very easy as a society to get stuck in what is the world going to look like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And I tend to think that people forget that people are very predictable. We have been through this challenge and this reality several times. We've been through it in the 1900s for the previous pandemic. We've been through it in age's time. So people are a lot more predictable than you think. And so if you feel uncertainty, I think the most important thing is understand the power of your ability to be resilient and resourceful. And understand that when you're able to really see the power in your ability to have the right mindset, right, about what's to come, and prepare for it. Because sometimes preparation is not really a matter of just like having all the resources in place, like knowing what you currently have and maximizing that. And I think that's something that for me, I would like to tell my grandkids is that at that time, I wasn't focused on what my next move was. I was focused on experiencing my current move to the fullest, because that's probably the best thing you could give yourself right now is like take the word busy out of your vocabulary and appreciate who you are in this time, because this is going to either test you or push you. And I think if you could find that, is very important. And I think one last point I'll give Felix is one quick series of things that I want to say about tech ecosystems and emerging markets and just in time. Think about having a rethink remote mindsets, right? Because I think right now everything is virtual. You are building an entire series on remote daily tidbits, because we need to really rethink what we do on a remote basis and really create a routine around that. So rethink your mindset and your routines. Second, rethink remote access, because now we're actually candidly talking about how people access the entire world of resources and energy and people remotely. And so you're able to see all the inconsistencies around the world and where you have setbacks and had to reinforce your own resources. Third, respect emerging markets, because I think now people are starting to see the value in the global ecosystem and seeing the opportunities that are available to them. I already said reimagine resilience, because again, I do feel like we have an issue with mental health right now. People are going through high stages of mental depression. We need to be upfront about it and really talk about it's okay to go through it. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be scared. That's why platforms like Remote Daily come in every day and just hear other people's perspective. Sometimes hearing that other people is going through the same thing is not giving you a solution, but it's giving you validation that it's okay to feel these sentiments. And finally, reinforce your community, because now is the time to demand more of your family, your partners, your friends. This is the time to say, like, we need to come together and reinforce that. So those are the final things I'll say, because I'm really actually excited, because this is going to be a time when I look back on what this pandemic has done for society, it really has forced people to redefine their values and what they want to do in this world. And I hope you guys take this time to appreciate that you've been given the space and the time now to really do it. So best of luck with all of it at once.
This is your applause. Thank you so very much, Christine and Tim, co-founder and CMO of the global startup ecosystem, for giving such a powerful outlook into 2021, into the markets and the technologies we should point our eyes at, and also pretty much here a workshop on resilience and resourcefulness. Thank you very much for your time. We're a little bit going over time today, but I hope because it's a long weekend ahead, maybe you don't worry, maybe you can stick with us after 2 p.m. Eastern for a couple of minutes, because now of course we invite you, and Christine, I hope maybe you can still stay with us for a few minutes. We invite you to connect with each other in breakout rooms. We say goodbye to our live stream audience out there on LinkedIn and YouTube. Thank you for joining us today. remotedaily.co is your place to RSVP. And Britt,